My brothers and sisters.
Greetings.
As you can see, this is a map of the world, upside down. No, it is not an accident. It is the true condition of the world.
Both history and reality over a period of almost 1400 years has been astounding. That is, until now. The greatest tragedy about this particular subject is that most of the descendants of African slavery, the black people in the Americas, around the world, as well as among the African blacks, are totally ignorant of the actual facts. Before we lose the concentration of our listeners, I would like to make the following statement and then prove it. That the worst, most inhumane and most diabolical institution of the black African slave trade was initiated, refined, perpetrated and implemented by the Mohammedan Arabs and later aided and abetted by the black converts to Mohammedan Islam. I predict that, as usual, the two subcultures, those of denial of facts and of political correctness, will attack us without once disproving a single statement and or conclusion that we make.
I hear and obey.
That's better. All police must learn manners in the end.
Centuries, Sudanese Arabs have been taking the black tribal people from Sudan as slaves for their personal use, as well as exporting them to the Middle East and beyond. Today, this practice continues under the approving eye of Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir.
The Sudanese military and its agents, militias that it armed, were the ones carrying out the slave raids, and they used government transport, a train, to help bring these troops in, and in some cases carry the slaves back en masse to the north.
Local community leaders here have given estimates that would suggest that over 200,000 have been enslaved over a 20-year period.
The thought of human beings for sale moved me to taking action. As a filmmaker, I wanted to expose the atrocities and give a voice to those who have none.
The most shocking thing happened to me. A small child was slaughtered and the head severed from the body. The Arabs forced me to carry the head. For 5 days, I was forced to carry that head, even though it had started to decompose and produce a strong stench. On the 5th day, they told me to throw the head by the wayside and to set it on fire. Although I became a slave and worked night and day herding the master's cattle, I think that all the bodily pain and suffering was less heavy on my spirit than the carrying of the head of the dead child. My master was called Hassan Abdul Rahman from Lagawa. A lot of Dinka tribesmen have remained behind as slaves of the Arabs. I hope that those who brought us back to Dinka territory can also do something to bring them back too.
A poor neighbourhood of Mauritania's capital, Nouakchott. Habby and her son don't have much, but even so, it's a lot more than they used to have when Habby was a slave to an Arab family.
In 2004, I first traveled to Sudan to participate in slave liberations with human rights workers from Christian Solidarity International, a Swiss organization. These slaves are people with hopes and dreams. Even those who were born into slavery knew that they were meant to be free.
Welcome to your home.
When you talk about slaves in Mauritania, you're talking about people who were born slaves. That means who work with no salary, who have no rights with their children, no right to education, and if it's a woman, she must sleep with her masters at their will.
The first one in this surah, it's really sick. Why? Because the Quran in every verse allowed in slavery, but this surah in here is allowed in not only slavery. Slavery is approved in Islam. It's normal. It's part of Islam. This is why Muslims country, they cannot sign the slavery law, the human rights law in the United Nations. Because if they sign that, it's going to be like as if they are signing something against their Quran. You cannot sign a law against your Quran teaching. So Quran allowed the slavery, you should allow the slavery. You cannot stop slavery. Anyway, so in this surah, as you see, it says it's also forbidden, or women are already married. Okay, so it's forbidden for you as a Muslim man to have sex with married women. Until now, this is great. I like that. But look, except those whom your right hand process, which mean who? Like women, they are married, are forbidden for you. Except who? Except those who they are your right hand process. So those right hand process, they are married and they are accepted as exception. So the exception saying you cannot have sex with any married women, but those slaves you have in your hands, if they are married, they are not forbidden. It's also forbidden women already married. So the women already married are forbidden for you if they are the free women, not the women you own in your hand as a slave. So if they are a slave, you can have sex with them.
How many men did this to her? How many men actually caught her and cut her throat?
There are 4 men. I was taken down and I was raped at the same time.
When they were doing this?
Yeah.
I mean, they cut her throat and then raped her as she...
When she becomes unconscious, caught my hand and legs, and one of them came with a knife.
So this will show you that how wonderful and how justice is the God of Islam. He is not allowing, like if the Quran is saying, okay, you can have sex with your slave, but she is not married. At least she is not married. But a woman, she is married. She have a husband, and you are allowing the man who own her to have sex with her. And when you say it's not forbidden for you, a woman you own, which means if I own a slave, let us say I have 10 boys, 20 boys. Arab people, they have a lot of kids. So this is mean all my kids, me and my kids, because we own this woman, all of us, we can have sex with her, because it's what it's saying, even if she is married. So imagine if I have 20 sons, all of them they are men, and I am the owner, and they are my sons, which means they are the owner too. So all of us, we can sleep with this slave, rape her, and she is married, and she cannot say no. So you see, Allah is God of justice. He is a very merciful God. And the Muslims will say to you, we care about, the women, she cannot have more than one man, because Islam do care about knowing who is the son, belong to who. Now, if more than 20 men, they are sleeping with one woman, who is the father? How you will know? And here it doesn't say, it's talking about one person, by the way. Why? Simply because whoever owns this woman can have sex with her. As an example, when you go and buy a car, let us say me and my cousin, we bought one car. What does that mean? It's mean both of us, we can drive her. So whoever have a share in that car, he can jump in the top of that car. I think that the picture is clear now, right? So whoever owns those women, he is allowed to have sex with them, and even here, he can rent them to others. And we will show you another verse in the Quran showing that Muslims, they use to force women to do prostitution. The Quran said, as an answer for that, force them not if they choose chastity, but if you force them, Allah will forgive you. So prostitution in Islam is allowed. Muslims, they will lie to you and they say, no, that's not true. I will show you that later. But in here, this is a lot more ugly from prostitution. This is a married woman, maybe 100 times they will sleep with her at the same time. And this is God, Allah is teaching me what to do with her. But remember, the Muslims will come to the, especially the black African American. I feel sorry for them, those African who converted to Islam. Anyway, they are coming out, most of them, very soon. We are doing a great job with those brothers, because they've been deceived. The Muslims told them, you see what the white man did to you? You see what the white man did, in America? They bought you from Africa. By the way, the one who was selling slaves from Africa to the West, it was the Arab Muslims in North Africa. Everybody know that. They go, they capture non-Muslims and they sell them to the Western. Until now, there's more than 2 million Sudanese a year. A year. Scary number. Most of them, they are kids. They are sold all over the world, especially to countries like Saudi Arabia, like Emirat, like Qatar. Until now, if you go and search right now for human being slavery, you will see in the top of the list all the Islamic countries. Number 1 in the top, Saudi Arabia, Emirat, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, etc. So those people, they are trading slavery because slavery is part of their religion. So they will go to the black man, African black man, and they will say to him, you see what the white man did to you? What the white man did have nothing to do with God. And the white man, he fixed that. And he said his sorrow. Now, why you didn't fix that in your Quran? If what the white man is a shame, why you go and you don't go and you take all those verses in your Quran and you burn it and you say what? No more slavery. We are people who support the humanity. Why you don't take this verse and here, the one that says, even if a woman, she is a slave, a black slave woman, even if she is a slave and married, even if she is married, I will have sex with her because Allah allowed me to do so. So don't talk about others when you are living in the world of slavery. Your God is the God of slavery. Everything in Islam about slavery. Even when you go to heaven, your God, Allah, will give you what? The lowest reward, 72 women for sex. Those are slave sex. Sex slave. 300 boys to serve you. This is what the Quran is saying. Those boys are slaves, or they apply for a job to work for your Majesty. Huh? Did they have a choice not to serve you? Do those women have a choice not to sleep with you? No. Allah will force them. They are slaves made for entertainment for you. So even the heaven of Islam is the heaven of slavery. Not only the earth of Islam is earth of slavery. Islam is a slavery from the beginning to the end. The Muslim is a slave of Allah, and everyone else, not a Muslim, he is a slave to the Muslims. It's a chain of slavery. So Muslims who talk about slavery and talk about dirt and talk about good and bad, look at your book and see what kind of book is the book he allowed in you to do that. And in here, by the way, you need to know that this is not a revenge. Like, maybe somebody will say, all days it used to be this way. If somebody enslaved my woman and he raped her, I rape his wife. No. In here it doesn't say that. It's not about punishment. A woman, she is owned by you. You can have sex with her even if she is married. So this is not about, like eye for an eye. You hurt me, I hurt you. You rape my wife, I rape your wife. That law, is not the case. Just to make things clear. So in here, Allah is approving that and making it legally approved. Part of Islam. You can have sex with married women. And not only you and your kids, and even you can rent that woman to anyone. You can give her as a gift to a friend to have sex with her. Like your friend, he will call you, hey Abdul, hey Muhammad, how you doing? I'm horny. Okay, don't worry, I'm going to send you a slave, so she will do some job for you. She will do some job like what? What I'm saying.
Today, there may be over 100,000 slaves in Sudan still in captivity, and more slaves are being captured from the Darfur genocide. Just like the genocide in Nazi Germany, many nations in the world refuse to acknowledge that slavery exists and therefore refuse to liberate them. These slaves have disappeared and remain hidden in the darkness. My Slave, My Infidel is a 1-hour documentary film I have produced in order to show you their faces, tell you their names, share their stories, and allow you to hear their cry for help.
They were just covered with thorn bushes to protect them from the vultures. Others were just lying in the river Lol, rotting corpses massed up. As far as you could walk, there were fresh corpses, women and children, who had obviously been trying to run away and had been followed, mowed down, slaughtered. And it went on for miles.
There were hundreds of armed men on horseback who came thundering through the village, setting it alight, killing the men, capturing the women and children and dragging them north as war booty for a life of slavery. It sounds like a medieval horror story, but for many southern Sudanese, this is the reality of life today. Agwan Matiang and her children were captured in last year's attack. They were marched 10 days north, given food mixed with sand and urine, beaten if they slowed. Then they were sent to work for different masters. 2 months ago, Agwan managed to escape with 2 of her 3 children, but not before she was forcibly circumcised, a barbaric procedure more appropriately known as genital mutilation. Young southerners are off to the northern front. They'll tell you they're fighting for political, cultural and religious freedom from an oppressive Islamic regime. But more than anything else, the civil war in Sudan is about economics, about who controls the fertile and oil-rich lands of the south. Southern Sudan could be the breadbasket of the Horn of Africa, yet today the Dinka look to the heavens for their food. Without international assistance, many would starve. And a couple of 100 meters away, 325 women and children, slaves, waiting to be redeemed. Their stories have the same threads: murder, abuse, rape, and religious coercion. 13-year-old Rebecca Nyanman Matok says she was held captive for more than 2 years, often tied so she wouldn't escape. Her sister is her only immediate family member still alive. For Adutane, the homecoming is bitter. 2 of her children, she says, are still enslaved, somewhere in the north.
Your brain is so stupid. This is your prophet words, man. I'm not joking with you. I gave you the reference. This is your prophet. It's not me. I'm not joking with you. This is a serious room. This is the link. Open it and read it. This is an official government website of Saudi Arabia. You're mine.
Just talk to someone quick that says Muhammad hates black person. Can I just clarify one thing, please? I'll keep it on it.
No problem. We change the topic just for the sake of your majesty, because you have a king size, right? Yeah, let us see how king size is yours. I will show you from the Quran that the Quran hates black people. Here we go.